Hello and welcome to Herein Lies the Peace of God in the Awakening Together Sanctuary. The Awakening Together Sanctuary is an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. The host of Herein Lies the Peace of God is Reverend Jacquelyn Eckert, the President and Minister of Awakening Together. Our co-host is your favorite anarchist preacher, Reverend Glen Ganaway, integral scholar. The Course in Miracles says this about discerning one truth. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Sing glory, glory, hallelujah. How wonderful thy holy name. Now I can see with God's own vision, and I see peace instead of pain. Yes, I see peace instead of pain. I can see peace instead of pain. Amen.
There we have it. It's not herein lies the peace of God without a wee doggies. And my love of theme songs.
Oh, it's great. I was just thinking how blessed we were to have that theme song.
Thank you very much. It's
that whole intro. Sana worked on it. Rev Yolanda worked on it. I said I was going to have to quit. I love it so much that I sing to it, but I need to quit because our timing is so different here on Zoom that when you watch the playback, it's like I either don't know the words or don't know the timing, or anyway, it's bad, but it's fun.
Well, it's all that kind of culture and what has happened to the world with Zoom. It's almost like it's almost been regularized, anymore. So
it's great because I have never had rhythm, so yay! Now I'm in.
Dancing is the first thing I ever loved. Everything I ever wanted to be was a dancer. I went to the ballet and I wanted to be the guy that was throwing all those girls around. I thought that was the coolest thing in the absolute world, to be a prince or a rat or something like that and dance around all the things and throw those beautiful women around. I thought that would be the great job.
That's great.
Talking about roles that you have for yourself, we were talking about earlier, but tell everybody what we do, or I'm going to keep talking.
Well, let me tell you real quick. What we do in this program is we are reading the Keys to NTI, which includes Luke, Galatians, Acts, and Revelation, and it's kind of a sampler from NTI. Why do I not see Galatians? I'm sure it's in here. But we talk about what we read it, and then we talk about it, and I talk about it a little bit. Glenn talks about it a little bit, and hopefully you all talk about it a little bit. Mm-hmm. So what we have vowed to do, I don't know how closely we stick to our vow, but what we have vowed to do is to talk about how we actually use these principles in our day-to-day lives. Right. And so let's just remember the theme, and maybe will help keep us on track. Mm-hmm. So and tonight we are going to read Luke Chapter 16. And I was really worried when Shauna wasn't here, but thank goodness she's here so she can tell us who reads. She does a great job of keeping track of that. Shauna?
It's Glen.
Okay.
I was right. It's a 50-50 chance.
That's right.
But, all right. So this is NTI Luke, chapter 16. According to my notes, it begins on page 161.
Or page 36 if you're actually reading from the keys.
Or 36 if you got the keys version. I'll do this version, but I have the PDF version. I think it's 400 and something. NTI Luke Chapter 16. There are many questions that will come into your mind as you follow this path with me. You'll often wonder what's right to do and what is wrong to do, and you'll feel confusion and worry within your mind. Let me remind you that confusion and worry are not of me. They're resistance, so you may rejoice that you do not need to listen to them. When confusion and worry are upon you, simply rest and let them pass. When you're feeling peaceful and joyous again, do whatever comes to your mind for you to do. Let me address the concepts of right and wrong now, for those concepts lead to confusion. Do you not notice that right and wrong are judgments? Have I not asked you to lay aside judgment? Do not worry that you'll be wrong in something that you do. Remember, I have told you that you will only have two experiences on this path: willingness and resistance. Choose with willingness, and you will feel joyful, and all things will be helpful. Choose with resistance, and you will have only chosen delay. This is true that you cannot, it is true that you cannot serve two masters. In fact, you can only serve one. In your willingness, you serve truth. And because only the truth is true, that can be the only master. In resistance, you serve nothing, for anything that is not true is illusion. Remember that you are never focused on the world, and you will not be confused. Always, in everything you seem to do, you're choosing among thoughts within your mind. Always, in every choice, you choose between willingness and resistance, joy and delay. Keep these simple thoughts in your mind, and you will not know confusion. Keep these options clear within your mind, and you will always know your guidance. Choose to follow guidance, and you choose health, happiness, and the path of truth. The law upon which you make judgments is written within your own mind, and in this law you have placed your faith until now. Now you are awakening to a new way to perceive, but you feel guilty because your perception still seems to cling to the old ways of judgment. Let me tell you that of yourself, you cannot stop judging by the law that has been believed within your mind. That's because you chose to believe this law, and so the law is your desire. In order to have the law erased from your mind, you must give your willingness that it be erased. When you notice that you are making a judgment based on the law, you must rest within the mind and give your willingness again. Do not believe your own judgments, for that keeps you stuck within the law. What is the law? What is the law on which your judgments and old perceptions are based? It is the law of separateness. It is the law that says the Spirit of God is not one. Or it may allow a belief that the Spirit of God is one, but it perceives that Spirit as separate from you and others. And since the law is separateness, it must also see differences that uphold the law. Judgment is the servant of this law, for judgment makes the law master and confirms the law within the mind. Belief and acceptance of this law gives judgment purpose, and judgment gives the law reality. Without judgment, the law cannot stand. Without the law, there is no differences on which to judge. Give your willingness not to judge, and rest when the temptation is upon you. When you do this, you give willingness not to serve the law of separateness, which is also to give willingness to know the Spirit of God is one. The story of the rich man and Lazarus has no meaning as it is written, and yet the story is filled with meaning and true purpose when one looks beyond its words with true perception. When you look at this parable through the eyes of the old law, you see two separate men. Although you are given very little information, you see a man in need of compassion and a man who did not give it. You may then decide that the man who did not give the compassion deserved eternal lack of compassion, which he received from God. Or you may determine that in the end, God showed the greatest lack of compassion at all. It isn't important what judgments you make. They're all based on the old law of separateness. Now, let me show you how this parable can be seen when viewed without the law. The parable is a collection of thoughts, which are being tested within the mind for value. The thoughts are not separate from one another. For each thought, the thoughts are not separate from one another, for each thought has been planted in order to conduct the test thoroughly. There is a thought of more and the thought of less, placed side by side as if they are separate. There is the thought of suffering, and the thought of right and wrong are tossed in to maintain the illusion of separateness. The story plays itself out as a test. And as the story plays itself out, the scales of pleasure and suffering seem to tip. But all of the story is thought. The story plays itself out, it seems. As the story plays itself out, it seems to become more confusing and more complicated, and one forgets that the story is only thought within the mind, pure illusion without reality of any kind. As one makes judgments, the story becomes more meaningful. It seems to take on life, and the story continues and is reapplied as meaning when similar thoughts come together in the mind. And yet, the story was never anything but thought, without the power to affect a part of the mind of the thinker. And yet, read that again. And yet, the story was never anything but thought without power to affect a part of the mind of the thinker. So what does this story say to you? All perception is thought within the mind of the thinker. The thought has no meaning of itself, and it is given meaning by the thinker. If the thought seems to have effects, it is the thinker that gives the thought any effects it seems to have. In other words, there is no power outside the power of the mind. This is a fact that I would have you consider now. Remember all that I have been teaching you. Remember all that I have been teaching as you consider the impact of what I'm telling you now. Everything you experience through the filter of your mind. You're never focused on the world. You are always focused on thought. The basis of all your experiences until now has been the belief in the law of separateness. The Spirit of God is one, and everything that exists within the Spirit of God. The truth is always true. And now, what does this story mean? Except that it can have no meaning. And if that is true of this story, can that which you experience have any meaning apart from the meaning that you give it? Done.
And done. Thank you. Very good. Okay. Lots to talk about here. Opening with, you will often wonder what is right to do and what is wrong to do.
Yeah.
And that will cause, and you will feel confusion and worry within your mind. And when you read that, Glenn, what came up for me was what I heard Regina saying this morning after the service. She said that she had asked a question, something like, do I want awakening enough? And she's like, no, that's not the right question. The question is, do I want awakening now? Let me see if I can figure out why that came up, or if I can articulate why that came up. It's the nature of the separate sense of self. It's the nature of the egoic mind to categorize and make distinctions among, and as Regina said about her question this morning, it had the sense of lack within it.
Yeah.
The possibility of lack within it. And it says that in here somewhere about these things sitting side by side in your mind. So the question is not, is this good or bad? Is there something else I should be doing? Am I doing this right? Do I work hard enough? Am I doing the exercises right? That's really not the question. What we're told to do is to find peace and joy, and then do what we feel to do. Right? It's not like, let me figure out what's the best thing to do? How am I gonna drive this train? Because I'm not driving the train, right? I'm making interpretations on what's showing up, and attempting to drive the train, to control, to maneuver, based on the meaning that I have given these things. We react to things as if there is an inherent meaning, as if they carry inherent meaning, and they simply don't. And Reverend Yolanda, I was thinking this was the lesson that she quoted earlier, but maybe not. Actually, I'm thinking of another lesson, which from A Course in Miracles, which is, I have given everything all the meaning that it has for me. Right? That's the one that I'm thinking of. So this whole idea that there's an inherent right and wrong is based on a premise of separation. NTI tells us that the idea of right and wrong upholds the idea of separation. And there's this reciprocal thing going on. Let me see if I can find that. Yes. It says, what is the law on which your judgments and old perceptions are based? Is the law of separateness. It is the law that says the Spirit of God is not one, or it may allow a belief that the Spirit of God is one, but perceives the Spirit is separate from you and others.
I know. It's y'all. It's
yeah, right. I stand out here, y'all are over there. Right? And since the law is separateness, it must also see differences that uphold the law. Judgment is the servant of this law, for judgment makes the law master and confirms the law within the mind. Belief and acceptance of this law gives judgment purpose, and judgment gives the law reality. Without judgment, the law cannot stand. Without the law, there are no differences on which to judge. So basically, it sounds slightly convoluted, but basically this, as we're told elsewhere in NTI, judgment is the building block of illusion. So if I think that there's a basis on which I can judge, and I often do, I Jacquelyn, often do think that there's a basis on which I can judge. I've jumped into, we talk about column A, column B. Here we're calling them willingness and resistance, right? So if I think that there's a law on which I can judge, or a rule on which I can judge, then I have jumped into column B. And what I see this is doing, and which all of these recommendations seem to say for me these days, look for it, call it out. Let's talk seriously about what's going on. Let's not let anything go under the radar. So talking about looking at what's being said here in terms of my everyday experience, it seems really innocuous. I have some friends that seem to have a lot of stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, they got 5 of those, they got 3 of those, they got 6 of those. Oh my God, they're hoarders. Oh, and that's a judgment. It's such a judgment. Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad. I'm not thinking that they're bad, right? but it's still a judgment. It's a me who's not a hoarder and a them who is. But let me tell you what, every time I make a judgment like that these days, 10 minutes later, I see I'm doing the same thing. Oh, I don't want to throw this away. I might use this little rubber band, 6 years down the road. So I think that is the way that Holy Spirit is working with me to show me those judgments that, oh, they're hoarders and you're not. What about this? Right. And that's coming up for me all of the time. The truth is I can't make those judgments or any judgments about other people without separating myself from them. And as I separate myself from them, I separate myself from God. I am confused in that moment about who I am, what I am. I think that I'm a standalone entity that has interests that are separate from you, that are separate from the way of the world, that are separate from everything. And they're not. There's only one thing going on here. To the extent that I forget that is the extent that I judge. I judge because it reinforces the law. Because I believe the law, I judge. So you can see how it's a loop. Mm-hmm. Right, that just keeps itself going. Mm-hmm. And again, they're subtle judgments. I mean, if you saw 6 of those and 3 of those and 5 of those, you go, yeah, I think they're hoarders. I don't think they need 6 of those, 3 of those, and 5 of those. Yeah, by definition. But that's not the way it works.
Not if my intent's happiness.
Not if my intent is happiness.
Not if I want to, like you started out. Not if my goal is to awaken now. And not to be right about how people should the dream roles I have for people. This is like really in my
Yeah. So again, we're asked to notice where we're placing our attention. The chapter began by saying, "Don't worry that you're going to be wrong in something that you do. Just be sure and choose with your willingness, always with your willingness to see that I'm in judgment, right? With your willingness to be open to your experience. What we're asked to do is to remember that it's not about how many tools they have or however what's going on. I'm not focused on them. I'm not focused on the world. I'm focused on my thoughts. So what thoughts do I want to entertain in my mind? That's the real question that's asked here. Remember that you're never focused on the world and you will not be confused. Always in everything you seem to do, you're choosing among thoughts within your mind. Always in every choice, you choose between willingness and resistance, joy and delay. Keep these simple thoughts in your mind and you will not know confusion. Keep these options clear within your mind and you will always know your guidance. Choose to follow guidance and you choose health, happiness, and the path of truth. So what is my genuine intention? I don't know it if I'm not asking myself that question. I'm just, yep, they're bad. I'm not bad. I'm bad. They're good. That's what I will find myself doing if I am not consciously aware of my intention. Yep. This is why we choose a spiritual aspiration. This is why we choose a spiritual aspiration and hold it as a beacon in front of us. So we can be aware what thoughts we're choosing in the mind. Mm-hmm. The thoughts that we choose in the mind will dictate the experience that we have in the world. So we're asked to give our willingness not to judge and to rest when the temptation is upon us. Again, look for it, call it out. Let me see what else I want to say here. Doesn't matter what the judgments are. They're all based on the old law of separateness. Yeah, I love that. I mean, that parable, I love this part about the parable. The parable is the rich man and Lazarus.
Yes.
And so when the rich man and Lazarus were both alive, the rich man was living it up. Lazarus was like
a beggar.
The dogs were licking stores and he didn't have anything to eat. They both did at the same time, right? The rich man looks up and goes, "Oh, Lazarus, save me." To slake my thirst while I'm here in hell.
I'm going to interrupt you because you jumped out and we just got we got a guitar solo instead of the what you just said. So paraphrase what Lazarus starting paraphrase what happened. So we got two guys that were living at the same time. What happens? That's where we lost you.
Yes, one's rich, one's poor. Lazarus is the poor one. They both die about the same time. And the rich guy says, please let Lazarus come give me a drink of water. And God says,
the rich guy's in hell, because the rich guy's in hell, and he sees Lazarus walking with our Lord, and he says, Lord, send Lazarus, with his little finger dipping in something like this, and he's in Hades burning. Hades.
And basically the response he gets back from God is no.
You weren't very nice.
That's right. You had a good life when he was poor. Now the shoe's on the other foot, isn't it? I mean, it basically is what is said with
a better person.
Yes, you should have been a better person, or whatever it is, whatever meanings we want to throw on there. And it's a horrible story. I mean, you read this story. I mean, why would you go back to church, right? After reading this story, it's horrible.
I know. God doesn't come out looking really nice in this story.
No, it doesn't. But this parable is used in a new way within NTI Luke Chapter 17. It's noted that the parable is a collection of thoughts which are being tested within the mind for value. Here's the thoughts placed side by side. There's a thought of more and the thought of less placed side by side, as if they are separate. There's a thought of suffering and the thought of right and wrong are tossed in to maintain the illusion of separateness. And how often are these the basis of our judgments that maintain this law, maintain our belief in this law of separateness, right? It's like, oh, this is right and this is wrong. And usually it's I'm right and you're wrong, nonetheless. And this is saying these are all thoughts. The story gets more and more confusing, and we don't know whether to be mad at the rich man or at God or what, but it gets more and more complicated. It says, as one makes judgments, the story becomes more meaningful. It seems to take on life, and the story continues and is reapplied as meaning when similar thoughts come together in the mind. And yet the story was never anything but thought, without power to affect apart from the mind of the thinker. So the moral of the story is that's all that's ever going on. This is all that's ever going on. You're making judgments and if this, then that, and therefore, and right and wrong. And we got a whole story built up, and I got a whole lifetime of stories that build this one that's sitting right here. And none of it means anything. These are all thoughts within the mind. It takes us right back to when confusion or worry are upon you, simply rest and let them pass. When you're feeling peaceful and joyous again, do whatever comes in your mind for you to do. Right?
Whatever. It doesn't give me the right thing to do. Jacquelyn, it doesn't give me the right thing to do. I'm coming to the Bible to find the right thing to do.
All perception is thought within the mind of the thinker. The thought has no meaning of itself, but it is given meaning by the thinker. If the thought seems to have effects, it is the thinker that gives that thought any effects it seems to have. In other words, there's no power outside of the power of mind. And we're told that in this very last paragraph. Again, everything you experience through the filter of your mind. You're never focused on the world. You're always focused on thought. The basis of all your experience until now has been the belief in the law of separateness. We simply could not behave the way we behave. We could not believe the way we believe without first believing fundamentally that I'm a separate standalone entity, separate from you, separate from God, separate from the world. We simply could not believe the things that we believe and behave the way that we behave without that fundamental belief. The Spirit of God is one, and everything that exists within the Spirit of God. The truth is always true. And now, what does this story mean except that it can have no meaning? If that is true of this story, can that which you experience have any meaning apart from the meaning that you give it? And the answer, of course, is obvious. Everything I see is has gone right out of my mind.
I have given, like, I always hear Earl Purdy say that in my head for however time. I have given everything I see all the meaning that it has for me. That's how I learned it from Earl Purdy.
Absolutely. And then one more thing I want to say is I heard several folks talking this afternoon during what is that called? That program called when Sana goes on break. Freedom Sangha. My memory, I swear, is coming back, but right now, and our friend across the pond, her name starts with an M.
Melanie? Nope.
Diane?
Manuela.
Yes, Manuela was talking about the fact that she had a phrase she was talking about feeling nerves or nervousness is fear, and she was talking about how funny that is because that's clearly meaning attributed to what you see, and you could have those same nervous feelings and call it excitement, right? You could be getting ready to go on stage, you can feel those same things. You can call it nervousness, or fear. You can call it excitement. Right. So we give this meaning to everything that we see, to everything that we think, and to everything that we experience. We give the meaning. Nothing has inherent meaning. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm done.
That's one of the things I say most in my teaching is that the basic fundamental is form does not have inherent meaning. It just doesn't. The meaning is not in things and will never be in things. You know, if it did, we could make happiness like we make a cake, and we could gather all the ingredients from the different longitudes and latitudes and put them together in a particular way under pressure, and it would have no choice but to produce a cherry cake of my happiness, exactly what I wanted. But it doesn't work. You know, it doesn't work that way, and it's better that it doesn't work that way. You know, because I'm such a poor judger. I'm wrong. I'm wrong a lot. You know, but I'm honest about being wrong so much that I let somebody else. I like the Holy Spirit make the decisions because I like the effects better. You know? Totally like the effects better. I cry way less. You know, I have my heart broken less. You know, I feel purpose and connection when I do this. Well, she tells the first story in NTI, the first parable is the shrewd manager. It's kind of funny. The shrewd manager is the boss finds out that the manager's like taking half the profits. You know, so that he changes the way he does things. He makes things right to get it correct. So the parable of the shrewd, the reminder is like, don't listen to fear and doubt or confusion or worry. They're not of God. It is a direct thing. Is when stuff hits the fan, don't fight. Get your mind right when stuff hits the fan. You know, get calm so I can listen. Choose willingness. And the phrase she uses is to speed you on your way. Willingness to speed you on your way. It's like willingness kind of makes everything slippery or maybe fast. You know, willingness compresses time for me. You know, I can see it quicker if I'm willing to let go of my story and my narrative and the way it's going to be doing. I think that's what she's speaking directly to in this beautiful passage. Choose willingness to spin you on the way, because only truth is true. You can have that can be the only master, the truth as our master. So the master, I mean, the apprenticeship master kind of thing. The master is the one who knows how to teach you how to use all the tools. Right? That's what the master does. You know. So this idea. Always, you know, because the truth is true, that can be the only master. So that's the intent. I can actually have a shot at measuring the truth, measuring like what I think of the narrative that's going on with me. I have a shot at, is this really true? What is this feeling really fear, or am I cold? I'm feeling cold, feeling irritated, I'm feeling numb, or whatever it is. I think that's really valuable. Always in everything you seem to do, you choose among your thoughts in your mind. Choose guidance. Choose guidance. And you will choose health, happiness, and the path of truth. She even said, you won't have to worry about managing form through space. It's kind of what I heard. If you'll be you, if you'll participate in the glory and the truth of what is here and now, this management of form goes away. It begins to sort of take care of itself.
Yes.
The body begins to take care of itself. The world, we realize, has always been able to take care of itself without my fundamental managing about needing it to be a certain way. So I'm trying to put together this happiness cake, and the world isn't participating. I see a lot clearer now. And this thing she's in part additional teachings. It's kind of wild. In the August, it talks about divorce and sin, and about marrying. Should you marry anybody that gets divorced or not? And just so, and what NTI says. Really examining these ideas that you think are fundamental to your beliefs. If they're fundamental to your beliefs, they're examinable. Your beliefs should be examinable. Examine the foundations of the beliefs you have. What is the law that you live by? What is your core idea? It's almost a request for what's your mission statement. Like Yolanda has a mission statement, to build bridges between different communities. Maybe we'll get her to say it, but it's like, what is this for? What are the law that you live by?
Yes.
Can you really examine the beliefs that you say are fundamental to your, what Yolanda was saying it earlier, Lokos, Somastas, Sukita, Bhavantu. May every single thing I do all the time be beneficial to, myself and the world, and what does I say, like giving my heart away, the way I say giving my heart away. Lokos, Somastas, Sukita, Bhavantu. It's the Bodhisattva vows. That's the law I want to live by. Because she gives examples of like what happens when you live by other laws. There's pain and suffering and material. If there's only material existence, if you're completely separate, that world is illusion and dreams and it's full of suffering. We don't if we can see it, we can recognize it, we can choose to not participate in what is true by examining the beliefs that we already have about the core fundamental beliefs, this self-inquiry that we always talk about here, about who's making this decision, who's suffering. Examine the foundations of the beliefs. In page 162, I wrote down one thing. Judgment is in service. Judgment is the servant of the law of separateness. Because I'm a Taurus. I'm a very aesthetic thing, very aesthetic. I have a very aesthetic viewpoint. I really do like things in a very very particular way. I'm a fastidious dresser. And so how do I give myself away and not need other people to be a certain way? How can I authentically be the expression of the love of God without requiring a dance partner that knows the other, like some imaginary other step, that I'm dancing with the world? How can I do that? Judgment is the servant of the law of separateness. And I keep saying joining is all the thing that I want. There's all these paths to joining. The bridge, she goes, last week was the little bridge. How small the gap is between the decision to align with what is real. The difference between and our ability to like flip over or wake up or see through is actually more natural and easier than we've ever think about it. But and she even alludes to that, to this. We talk ourselves out of it. We talk ourselves out of believing what is true, and even to take the action or take the courage to do it. She goes, don't worry, don't even worry about any of that. All that focus is still in the paradigm and trying to fix the paradigm, or that's not where the solution is.
Yeah.
You know, you're messing with deck chairs, you're it just that you can do that, and it's fun and aesthetic maybe, but it's not the answer you're seeking. You're calling this the answer and not getting it's why we're suffering, because I don't recognize where power is and who's causing all this suffering. Because if I did, I have to take responsibility for it, right? I have to say, oh my God, it's me. You know, the call is coming from inside the house, ma'am. You know, it's like wow. And what really good news is that? I don't have to go chase somebody down and have them stop doing something, right?
Right.
I don't have to chase anybody down. I don't have to do. What I have to do is be willing to look at my fear, because my willingness again and again and again will bring me to the moment where healing is actually available, and I can see where I am joined. I can see through it because it's natural.
Yeah, Glenn, I'll just interrupt real quick, because that reminds me of someplace in NTI. It says, so bring these thoughts to me, right?
Yeah.
But don't bring them to me, or bring these judgments to me, but don't bring them to me assuming I'm going to tell you you're right. which is what we do, right? This again, this sense of right and wrong that we have is we place ourselves squarely in the middle of it. And again, it's this idea that's how separation lives in our mind. But we place ourselves squarely in the middle of that, in the right section. And then we want to bring that into our interactions as well, instead of going, show me how to see this, which is the real question.
And last week, maybe it wasn't last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, but it was like the voice that likes you cares about everything that you care about. It's going to everything's already okay. There's no most of what I do is I won't do it. I don't listen because I experience loss. I'm afraid. I've talked myself into there's going to be loss if I give up something, or if I don't insist, or I don't. I'm going to lose, so that whole loss, that's how I get into that situation, So I talk myself out of it, because I don't want to feel. So again, with finding out my own tics and my own ways of doing it. So the rich man, the rich man of the Lazarus is kind of wild. When I read it in the Bible, I was like, well, that's just sort of like, if you don't, it's just like karma, so if you aren't the world that you'll be on the other side of the coin. So at some point that's just the way, a lot of things, it's not mean or not. I don't know. It just struck me as a lot of like karma, but it's kind of weird. God goes, no, I'm not helping. You can suffer forever. In the end of that story, that was kind of wild. And I put this up. I made this nice and big and bold in my. There is no power outside the power of the mind, and she tells you why. There is no power outside the power of the mind, because she said over and over and over again, you get what you work for. The world that you put your energy and attention into, you get to experience. So more illusion, more suffering, more healing, more cries for help. Certainly possible. Everything you experience through the filter of your mind. You're never focused on the world. You're only ever focused on thought. Wow. That's good news, because I can interrupt a thought often, maybe a little bit. And what I did a lot of this weekend is they were telling me something that I wanted to be true, but it was so good that I couldn't believe it. So I had trouble wanting it. I wanted it to be true. That I have a loving family that cares about us and wants our relationship with us. I want that to be true. But I didn't believe it was true. So I chose to act on what she says in here. What is the intent you have for this relationship? Healing. I want to see reality. I want to participate in the love that is my natural inheritance. I want to remove the blocks of the awareness so that I can see literal my brother for who he is. Me. Us. That we're doing this together. We're healing each other. As we say in the thing, walk home, as we're all walking home to God. We're all, walk with me. Take my hand, walk with me. She says this over and over and over again. So I like that. You're always focused on your thought. This is the basis of all your experience. So we can examine, we can be onto ourselves, like we say. It's the law of separateness. The Spirit of God is one, and everything that exists within the Spirit of God. Truth is always true. It's okay. It's okay, little one. It's all gonna, you can cry and wail, but you're going to be happy. The world loves you and everything like that. You don't have to believe it. You can experience anything that you want to, but everything's already okay, and the world wants a relationship with you. And we could resist that. If I have resisted joining, resisted, being vulnerable, resisted, asking, wanting to be right much more than I want, to be seen as right. My ego will not get out of the way. I'm right. Saida.
I have a quote that I feel goes directly with what you're sharing, which is such a beautiful share. So thank you. And it's so good to be back with you all. It's a Robert Adams quote that Reverend Andy Walker shared with me. He often shares quotes during his program. It says this: if you pay attention to consciousness, your body always takes care of itself. It will live out the years it's supposed to live, and you will find that everything will unfold as it's supposed to. You have to trust life. As long as you feel that you're tied down to the body and to the world, you have to trust life. You can do that much. In other words, you have to believe that the universe is your friend. It can do nothing but help you and love you. You have to begin to understand, when you're thinking from a mind-body standpoint, that there is one life, and that life is God, and that life is your life now. The substratum of all existence is bliss, and you are that. If you have to use your mind, this is the way you should use it. Think of those higher things. Think of yourself as absolute joy, that all of your needs are met from within. Everything you need will be supplied from the power within yourself. It's better not to think like this at all. It's better not to think. But if your mind appears to have dominion over you, think of the higher things, and the day will come when you no longer have to think of those things at all. You will become pure awareness. Until then, do the best you can. Try to stay happy. Do not allow any condition in this world to upset you, make you angry, or cause you to react in a negative way. For when you understand that the way the universe is set up, and you will realize that in whatever way you react, you're doing it to yourself. But there's only one self. What I think about you and what I do to you, I'm doing to myself. This is why I can only love you. I am not interested in what you are or what you do. I can only love you. This is the way you should think if you identify with the body. But the best way, of course, is to inquire, to whom do all these thoughts come? All these good thoughts, all these disturbing thoughts. Who thinks them? Why, I do. Hold on to the I. Follow the I to the source. That is the best way. But if you have to play mind games, begin to feel as if your real nature is God and all is well. There are no mistakes. Everything is in its right place, unfolding as it should. Do not feel sorry for yourself. Everything that has been happening to you has been preordained. And the way to get rid of it is not to attach yourself to the problem, but inquire, for whom is the problem? Over and over again until you become free. Again, that was Robert Adams. Quite a long quote, but really delicious.
Thank you. That was really, really.
Thank you for repeating the name. We wanted to. Robert Adams. What's the name of the book? Or the
Yeah,
quote?
the quote, the one who wrote the quote, Robert Adams.
Yeah, but
I think he was a disciple of.
Do you know what what book it's from?
Oh, I'm
That was
so
special.
sorry.
It's okay.
I don't
It's
know
all
that
good.
part.
It's all good.
Andy gave it to me.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's funny, and we're talking about, I give all the meaning, everything I see has all only the meaning I've given it. Well, I don't know why that won't stay in my head, but anyway, you get the idea. Y'all know the lesson. Anyway, I want to do real quick before I turn this over to Cindy, is just tell you about my experience yesterday, all day, building a doghouse. I bought a doghouse, a plastic doghouse, and the instructions were really easy, and but it needed insulation, so I had to cut out these sheets of insulation to put in it. It's like a board. So I start the day and I'm like, oh, Father, thank you. This is a beautiful day. Oh my God, I can't believe how lucky I am, how blessed I am, how wonderful. The weather's beautiful. The dog's here. I'm building the doghouse. It came. It's all wonderful. By the end of the day, I'm like, I can't believe I got to build this doghouse. But I mean, it's like, nothing, absolutely nothing had changed. I was just over it, right? I was over building the doghouse. I wanted to be on to my next task. But it was side by side there in the mind, those two options, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could choose.
Really perfect example. I always say you can't pick up a rose without thorns.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly.
Cindy.
Yeah, thanks. I took notes while Jacquelyn was talking, and so I felt it. I wanted to say them out loud real quick. It shouldn't take me long. The first, and I was laughing because every week since I started coming, I always was able to go to wherever I was in Gentle Healing and say, look, it's the same, it's the same. And I was listening today, and I couldn't find anything in Revelations where we are relative directly to where you were teaching. And then Jacquelyn says, Jacquelyn's like, I don't know why I'm saying this, but we can only awaken now. And yay, Revelations 14, the harvest is now. So I really just had to say that because literally that's where we are this week. You can only choose to awaken now. You can only decide what your purpose is now. And we just did that this week. So I was really excited to teach myself that. And then I wanted yesterday, again, I did back-to-back diets. This is still mind-blowing to me what occurred yesterday, because I did a diet with a beautiful being in Canada, and at some point out of nowhere, she starts talking about feral cats and are they going to be warm enough this winter and have to feed them, and then she went on to something else. And it was in my mind. And then an hour later, I did another diet with a woman in Poland. And literally, like, there was no question, like she was in a real diet, self-inquiry, and then there was this pause. I feel so bad for these feral cats. It's so cold here. I don't, bam. And the mind is going nuts, right? The mind's going, well, coincidences don't happen. There's got to be a meaning. And because I'm such a good student, I got real quiet. I stepped, inner wisdom. What do you have to share for me? And literally the response is, the world is meaningless. You almost believed it. Like literally, bam. Like I wanted, like that coincidence, the mind wanted to tell me, you know, it's Cindy, it's time to go do in the world of poor animals or this or that, the other thing. And because of the way I've been taught and the practice, I literally stepped back. I asked and immediately was shown there's nothing in the world that's real. And this was literally nothing other than to remind yourself that again. And something got real powerful and real quiet. And if there's something to do to help animals, it'll just happen. But the believing that the world situation with feral cats was important, God was telling me to fix it, was a lie in the mind. And just the whole conversation about you give everything the meaning it has for you. But it was also, it was delicious in reminding me that the world literally is a projection of the mind and not the other way around. And when we get quiet, we're able to repurpose everything that occurs. So I kind of wanted to share that as well. And then the third thing, sorry, but I went through this period as an adult, like at the same time, like right before I met all you guys, where I became a real Christian for a while. And I was hanging with Bible scholars and trying to figure out all these different meanings. And that story of Lazarus and the rich man, all I kept, again, like a trillion different meanings in the world that people were giving it, and hours and hours and hours of discussion. And I just started studying the Supreme Yoga, you know, 7 Steps to Awakening. For some reason, I'm dropped into this man's teaching. And one of my favorite quotes, all scholars are ignorant. And with that, like, stop looking for meaning in the world. And that's my share. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
We're so thrilled you're here. Thank you for your share. That was brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, and guess what? We're out of time. And you are muted, Glen Morton Ganaway, our favorite anarchist preacher.
I was trying to get ready for the next thing, right? So let's see what happens. Thank you for joining us, everyone.
You've been listening to Herein Lies the Peace of God with Reverend Jacquelyn Eckert and Reverend Glen Ganaway. To find out more about Jacquelyn and to donate to Awakening Together Sanctuary, go to www.awakening-together.org. To find out more about Glen and to donate to the Mighty Companions Ministries, go to www.glenganaway.com. That's GLENGANAWAY.com.
I can see peace instead of pain.
Good night, everybody. I love you.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for being here.